Hello and welcome to Saints Live. I'm Steve Forbes.
And I'm Kenzie Benali.
And we're back as Southampton hope to build on an excellent point against Arsenal in a trip to South London this afternoon to take on Crystal Palace in the Premier League. We've got all the key talking points in the build-up to the match, that all-important team news, and make sure to get your comments into us as well, however you're watching across our social media channels. Now, it's not just the two of us. Joining us today, we have the mainstay of our midfield, the ever-present Dean Hammond, and also stepping into the breach, sort of last minute, we have our cult hero, Paul Belverston. And it's a bit of a different backdrop for you today, Belvers.
Yes, I'm on enemy territory. Believe it or not, this is the, I was going to lie and say it's the managing director's office. It's actually the head of media's office at the Vitality Stadium. I'm doing the Bournemouth Spurs game for the Premier League, but delighted to be joining you guys first.
Yeah, we're delighted to have you. And Dean, it's back to Zoom from our in-person meeting last time out.
It is, Steve. It was brilliant doing the show live, but back to normal on Zoom. I wish I was ever present when I played as well, Steve. I was ever present on the show, but missed out a few times playing. But no, looking forward to the game, and it's always good to be back.
Good stuff.
Yeah, we're looking forward to this one as well, aren't we? And actually a lot to unpack before we bring you the team news. Loads going on, actually. We know Ainsley Maitland-Niles was ineligible against Arsenal, but of course he is back in contention today. Romeo Lavia, he is in training, but probably won't feature this afternoon. Armel Bella-Kotchap, not available, but the good news is that he could well feature next weekend against Newcastle. Carl Walker-Peters probably won't be back before the World Cup break. That's a blow, isn't it? And he, of course, definitely won't be involved today. And Tino Livramento is still a long-term absentee. So, team, with all of that in mind, let's come to you to get your thoughts on your early team news. A lot of things for Ralph to consider there.
There is, Kenzie, but I think it will be very, very similar. I think the last 3 games, the team selection has been reasonably consistent. I think there's been a change of shape during games, and the team have adapted well, but picked up 3 very good results. Only conceding 2 goals, a clean sheet there, a really good performance, especially second half against Arsenal last weekend, which was really entertaining and set a standard for the players. So I can't see too many changes, to be honest. I think the game may be very, very similar today against Crystal Palace, who are a bit of a force at home at Selhurst Park. They're a good team. Play that 4-3-3 formation, very attacking, like to have possession of the ball, very similar to Arsenal, a level below Arsenal, but a similar approach. So I can't see Ralph making too many changes. I think players are starting to build some sort of relationships in terms of partnerships around the pitch, which is always important. I think we're seeing that in the performances and the displays individually and collectively. But I could probably see Shay Adams probably coming back into the team if he's fully fit. And maybe Joe Aribo just missing out. I think the 4-4-2 formation could work, whether that goes into a 4-2-2-2 or like last week during the game we adapted to a 3-5-2. I think you have the players within that selection that can adapt to that. But I'd like to see Adam Armstrong and Shay Adams partner each other up front, especially away from home. If Southampton try to sit in and stay compact and play on the counter-attack, then you've got the hold-up play of Shay Adams, the industrial play of Shay Adams, and then the pace of Adam Armstrong in behind. So I think it will be very, very similar selection, and I'm looking forward to seeing the team play again.
And what about yourself, Belvers? Do you see many changes to the team that earned a well-deserved point against Arsenal?
I agree with Dean about Shay Adams. I'd be amazed if he doesn't come back in. It was a surprise to see him left out, even though it was obviously just as a precaution last week. But yeah, I fully expect him to come back in. I think I'd be amazed if Lavia is brought back so soon. That would feel like a bit of a rush and a bit unnecessary as well, with the way I thought Diallo grew into the game last week. I thought he struggled a little bit at the start, but come the end, I thought he was tremendous. And of course, as you said, Ainsley Maitland-Niles eligible again. And I spoke to him this week actually, and it was interesting how he said that from the, I think was it 2 or 3 weeks between where he was left out of the squad against Villa and then brought in to start against Everton, he'd really worked very intensely with the manager on what is expected at Southampton in that role, both in the middle of the park and at right back. Now, he's been asked many, many times in his career where he wants to play, and he's always said, very versatile, I'll happily play wherever the team needs me. But ultimately, he does want to play in midfield. He's had a very successful time, though, at fullback in the past. So possibly he could be brought in to look after Wilfried Zaha, although after the wonderful show we had of Lianco versus Martinelli last week, I'd feel a bit cheated if we didn't see Lianco against Zaha this week. So that's what I'm hoping for.
Oh, that's certainly a tasty matchup, isn't it? But we will come on to that in just a moment. Before we do, though, some highlights for you. Let's recap that 1-1 draw against Arsenal last weekend.
And James Ward-Prowse and Martin Ødegaard, the two number 8s, have just shaken hands and done the coin toss. Both teams are in a huddle. Arsenal having all the possession in the first 3 minutes. They have it out on the right wing. Saka crosses it in, and it's just gone past the far post as everyone missed it. Gabriel was running onto it. Gabriel Martinelli gets a nice 1-2 with Thomas Partey into feature. Jesus in the box, just put off by Salisu. Still in the penalty area, driven by Granit Xhaka, and well saved by Bazunu. I think it was Bazunu rather than the defender in front of him. As a lovely backheel from Bukayo Saka gets Ben White in, and this time Granit Xhaka makes no mistake with a thunderous first time right footer high into the roof of the net.
Saka just cuts in front of Perrault into spaces of the midfield.
Oh, Shinatasari's unlucky. Now Ødegaard flicks it back to Jesus, a brilliant save from Bazunu, and then it's hacked clear by Saints. And Salisu thinks about the throw and then goes back to Stuart Armstrong. Saka was slow. Armstrong crosses. It's allowed to go past everyone. How did Elianusi miss it? Oh, that was the best chance of Saints' day. And then Salisu didn't get there. And now it's 3-on-1. And suddenly Ødegaard's found Gabriel Jesus. Defenders trying to get back. Oh, how did he make that block, Elianusi? Good dummy by Salisu. It's a great ball. Perrault looks up. He could have played Armstrong, but he's found Elianusi. Can he have a drive at Tomiyasu? Get a shot away. No left foot. Here's Armstrong. 4-1. Absolutely brilliant.
Good goal, Alan.
Armstrong and Moy Elianusi. And Saints are back on level terms against the league leaders. Lovely backheel to Stuart Armstrong. Ball on the left. Perrault to the byline. Pulls it back to Aribo. Shots and saved by Ramsdale near post. As they look to go down the left, Arsenal getting behind, and that's a clumsy challenge. Back to Ødegaard. It is 2-1 Arsenal, but the flag goes up, and the ball was out of play, and that is it. That is a fantastic point.
There we go, highlights of that 1-1 draw against Arsenal. There's a few things to pick out there from the game, Dean, but let's start with Southampton's goal. Really well worked, wasn't it?
Brilliant goal, Steve. Really, really good goal. Really good team goal. And what I like about it is that Southampton kept to their values and kept to their beliefs. They continue to try to play out from the back and use that possession. But it's the movement of the individual players. You know, Perrault is a left back. He ends up high up. Stuart Armstrong becomes narrow. And the pass from Salisu is fantastic. Joe Aribo comes towards the ball. So the movement causes Arsenal problems, but it's all about Elianusi really on the ball. He's very, very composed. He attacks that Arsenal defence, and then the weight of the pass for the movement of Stuart Armstrong, who comes through the centre of the pitch. And it's a wonderful finish because he takes it really early and takes it first time, which just doesn't give Ramsdale any chance to set himself or an attempt to try and prevent the goal. So it's a brilliant team goal from Southampton. Really enjoyed that, and it was the movement of the players, the timing of the movement, the weight of the pass, and then ruthless execution from Stuart Armstrong. I thought grew into the game and had more of an impact as the game went on, especially when Southampton changed shape and he became more central. But if you look at the goal, you have to give credit to the manager and the coaching staff, because they did something different from the first half. And if you look at the Southampton players, I think as the ball goes into the net, there's 5 or 6 Southampton players within that box. Now, I know they needed to get back into the game, but that's very, very risky against a brilliant Arsenal team. So it's a fantastic finish, but they would have identified it at half-time. They would have had conversation between the manager and the coaches. How can we create a goal against Arsenal? How can we cause them problems? And you can see from the movement of the players and the way they tried to play out from the back. They just didn't go back to front. So credit to the team, the players, the coaching staff. But it's a brilliant finish from Stuart Armstrong. And I think he needed that. And hopefully that will give him just that added confidence to get a few more goals, because he does have the ability to score more goals.
Well, Belvis, should we chat Moy Elyounoussi, because he got the assist for that goal and earned himself a spot in the Premier League Team of the Week after that performance. How did you rate his game against Arsenal?
He was man of the match and arguably his best performance in a Saints shirt. I think he was tremendous. Key contributions at both ends of the pitch. We've seen his contribution there for the goal, but also I think he was a little bit unlucky earlier on. Here we go, when I think he sort of expects one or maybe both Gabriels to get a touch on that. Perhaps a seasoned striker would be more instinctive and just go through it. But he's a little bit unlucky. I'm not going to criticise him for not putting that in the back of their net there. But what comes next, the contribution here, when he just smells the danger, I think it's very interesting. There are 5 players closer to his own goal than he is at the start of that move. And he's helped out by Gabriel Jesus not having the most perfect last couple of touches, but still he had to anticipate that. He had to race back and ultimately had to put in that block. And it was a crucial block, 1-0 down at that point. If that had gone in, then of course the contribution for the equaliser, it wouldn't have been nearly so important. But again here, just composure, lovely couple of touches, one with both feet, and a lovely weighted ball through for Stuart Armstrong. Look, he's not the most popular name on the team sheet always. I think he proved a lot of people wrong with this performance. We want to see more performances like this now. I spoke to him immediately off the pitch for the Premier League after that game, and he said that it was a very unusual position that he'd been asked to play, and he'd never played so defensive before. But after the 10-15 minutes of the opening of the game, which I think everyone feared the worst because Arsenal were rampant, it looked very much like they could recreate what Chelsea did at St Mary's 6 months or so ago. Credit to Ralph for changing the shape. Very much credit to the likes of Moy, who adjusted to a completely unfamiliar position, playing more defensively, and that helped wrestle back the advantage, or certainly helps Saints get back into the game, take stock at half time, and then the second half was tremendous. And I think Moy takes enormous amounts of credit for that, deserved all the praise that came with it. I think without him, it wouldn't have been nearly as a successful day as it was.
Definitely. And finally, we have to talk about a player, Dean, who is quickly becoming a fan favourite amongst the ranks at St Mary's, and that's Lianco, involved in a lot of the action at the weekend. And talk us through the good and indeed the bad of his performance.
Well, he was fantastic, Steve. And the performance he put in was so determined. He showed resilience, like I say, determination, tenacity. He was an example of why Southampton got something out of this game. He was good in possession of the ball when he needed to be. This challenge on Martinelli is right on the edge, but it's fair. And he just let Martinelli know that he was going to be in for a tough afternoon. And this challenge here was brilliant. He just set the tone. He was fantastic. And he does some crazy things, shall we say, some different things that maybe you wouldn't expect from a defender. But I think that's a Brazilian coming out in him. But he was great. And when he plays to the fans as well, he created almost an atmosphere himself. He was brilliant, and he was great to watch. And playing at right back as well, out of position. And hopefully he continues that role and keeps that position, because he's an out-and-out defender. He loves defending, and he senses danger, like you can see in this moment here. He gets across quickly and gets just a slight touch on that shot to prevent it getting on target. But you do have moments where, like we say, he plays on the edge, and I was a little bit concerned in this moment that, after such a fantastic performance, that he may just go over that, past that boundary and get sent off, and then he wouldn't be able to continue a run in the side. He would be suspended. But almost by playing on the edge, it brings that brilliance out in him. And he put a really good performance in, and he'd be really, really pleased. And it was just brilliant watching him, lift the crowd. And you need that sometimes. It doesn't always take a goal. Sometimes a tackle or a bit of passion, intensity from a player just creates the atmosphere. So yeah, fantastic to watch.
Yes, indeed. Well, we'll continue the Lianco chat after the team news, but let's bring that to you now, shall we? We can tell you that there is one change to the team that faced Arsenal. Shay Adams is in for Adam Armstrong. Lianco does remain at fullback, so again, that's going to be an interesting situation with Zaha, isn't it? Looking forward to that. And Lewis Payne amongst the substitutes for a second successive week. So let's run through that 11 in full, shall we? In goal, it's Gavin Bazunu. The back four, Lianco, Douye, Shaletta Sarr, Mohamed Salisu and Roman Perro. In the midfield, it's our captain James Ward-Prowse, Ibrahima Diallo. Out wide, Moy Elianusi and Stuart Armstrong. And up top, it's Shay Adams partnering Joe Aribo. The Saint subs then are as follows: Alex McCarthy, Juan Larios, Lewis Payne, Musa Gineppo, Ainsley Maitland-Niles, Sam Edozie, Theo Walcott, Sei Kumara and Adam Armstrong. Belvis, let's come to you then. What do you make of that starting 11?
No great surprise. I don't think anyone was expecting wholesale changes. We have had matches this season where there have been 5 or 6 changes to the starting lineup, haven't we? But no, after last week's performance, I think there's good reward for players who put in a great shift a week ago. I think I am a bit surprised that there's no Ainsley Maitland-Niles in there, but equally, I mentioned earlier, I think Ibra Diallo deserves another go after the way he finished the game. Lianco at right back was a revelation. So the good thing is there are options again for the manager, even though there are all these injuries still in the squad, players coming back, players starting recovery and so on. He does still have some good options there in some key areas. So, no great surprise. I'm glad to see Shay Adams back because I think it can be a bit of a battle at Selhurst Park, and he looks an absolute pain on the pitch at the moment, a real nightmare to play against for defenders. So I think he could be very, very useful at Selhurst today.
Yes, indeed. Dean, I know you spoke before that team news that you wanted to see Shay Adams back. As Belva said there, perhaps no real surprises. But again, I think maybe a few people were expecting the reintroduction of Ainsley Maitland-Niles. What do you make of that 11?
No, I think it's like Belva has mentioned there, not really too many surprises. I think it's what we expected. And I think I agree with Paul. I think Diallo put a really good performance in last week against Arsenal. We broke up play very, very well. Like many Southampton players, he grew into the game and got better and better. He played to his strengths, and I think that could be similar today against a very talented Crystal Palace attacking line and midfield players that love to get on the ball. And I think Maitland-Niles has come in and done okay, but Diallo put a really good performance in. I think he complements James Ward-Prowse a little bit more, if I'm honest. I think that partnership's a little bit more developed, and that's maybe why the manager has gone that way. But great to see Shay Adams back. I think he's having a really good season. He's really influential, and like Paul's mentioned, he's difficult to play against at the moment. He looks like he's got the bit between his teeth. His pressing, his energy, is fantastic, and he sets another player in that Southampton lineup that sets the tone from the front. And I think if he can get a few more goals, he's going to grow into a fantastic player. So great to see Shay back as well.
Yeah, definitely. Well, let's take a minute now to look at what you, the fans, are saying across our social media channels, watching at home. Gene Young has said, "Good luck, Saints. Have a great game." Also, David Brewer says, "A massive game today against Palace. Would be good to extend our unbeaten run." Also, Sean Kelly says, "Come on, you Saints." Jordan says it's a massive game today, could really set the tone for the season. Peter said he'd like to see both Stu and Elianusi linking up. Another one from Andy Kershaw, who is actually watching the game with his sons Sean and Callum. Callum's part of the Saints live team, so I'm sure he'll appreciate a shout there. Plus godson William Marriott and his friends. They predicting a 2-1 win for Southampton today. Jack has said on YouTube, Shaletta Sarr is a very smart signing and has been good while Armel Bella-Kotchap is out. And then a last one here from Joe Clark, who says, "Let's see Zaha in Lianco's pocket today."
Well, it's funny you should say that. That leads me very nicely onto our next question. Belvis, that is going to be interesting, isn't it? That is going to get feisty. Obviously, Crystal Palace, I'm sure, saw his aggressive performance against Arsenal last week. They could potentially be looking to exploit that. We know there is already quite a bit of feistiness in this fixture already with the likes of Zaha and Prowse. So what does Lianco, now we know he's playing, need to do to, I suppose, keep a lid on it, keep that aggression under control in this one today?
Well, I think he does need to be a bit careful, but equally, Zaha's not the coolest character in the world, is he? You mentioned the clashes with Prowse in the past. You know, the captain's got under his skin just by being a bit sort of cheeky and clever. And, you know, Lianco will approach it in a very different way, of course. I spoke to Ainsley Maitland-Niles, as I mentioned earlier. I asked him specifically about Lianco this week, and he said he's extraordinary, a Jekyll and Hyde character. He said he's the quietest man at Staplewood during the week, off the pitch. Very much keeps himself to himself in a corner, chilled, calm, collected, likes the odd game of table tennis and darts. But when he's on the pitch, he is transformed. Whether it's training or match day, he gives nothing short of 100% and is an absolute nuisance, nightmare to play against, even when it's up against his own teammates in training. He is roaring in his opponents' faces and giving under everything that a fan really loves to see. That's why everyone has taken to him so quickly. And I think, you know, if he is going in fully committed against Zaha, Zaha's going to get very wound up very quickly. We don't want any sort of reaction like we saw against Nketiah last weekend, because away from home especially, that's much more likely to go against you. And how many times are you able to go face-to-face, nose-to-nose with an opponent like that before you do get punished? But I'm sure there's been a quiet word or two said already and reminded about that. And, you know, Saints do have this record of getting under Zaha's skin. So I think it's more Zaha that needs to be careful rather than Lianco, perhaps.
Yeah, I'm sure we're hoping for a rather spicy fixture this afternoon, but all kept within the rules, the laws of the game, as it were. Paul, I'll stick with you. Last season at Crystal Palace, it was a 2-2 draw. What do you remember from that game?
It didn't start very well, did it? It was around Christmas time, and yeah, I don't think Saints went into it in the greatest run of form. We're talking about Zaha, and of course he was right at the forefront again. He does always seem to score against Saints. There was a robust challenge in the middle of the park there, and yeah, funnily enough, it was Lianco who was backing off there that allowed Zaha to score. And it's just, I just remembered actually, Lianco, one of his few yellow cards did come against Zaha in this game late on, but you know, Palace had these chances. They could have gone further ahead, and then that happened. One of those magical moments from the skipper, a delicious free kick that's so demoralising for the opposition and gives his own teammates and fans and everything a lift. And Breuer was on pretty terrific form around then, wasn't he, in the first half of the season? I remember he told me this was his favourite Saints goal, just ahead of the one against Brighton at St Mary's. But you know, I think this only came a couple of minutes after Prowse had put Saints back in it. So that was a wonderful time. Willy Caballero, only his second Premier League appearance, a couple of good saves in each half. And then came this irritating equaliser. Caballero unlucky, really, not to get more on it as he stuck out a foot. And it was prodded in at the far post. And, you know, 2-2 was probably fair. It was a very topsy-turvy end-to-end game. Saints couldn't quite get the winner that they wanted at the end there. And, you know, I think... yeah, it was a fun game to watch, a little bit frustrating. But, you know, it was one of those frustrations where, again, it was that old story of Saints dropping points from a winning position. And that seems to have haunted Ralph Hasenhüttl throughout his time at St Mary's. It's changed around a little bit this season, hasn't it? We've seen it happen again on the opening day against Spurs, West Ham, Everton as well. But equally, there have been signs of the other way, the real mental strength and spirit you need to launch a fight back. Last week against Arsenal, Chelsea, Leicester, a couple of other games as well. So, you know, that's important. It would just be nice if we could always also just occasionally have a few more occasions like we saw just outside here at Vitality Stadium earlier this season, where we see a Saints win without conceding. More of that today, please.
Yes, indeed. More of that for sure. Dean, Bell was just mentioned there, that game against Crystal Palace last season was a topsy-turvy one. What are your memories from that game?
Very similar to what Paul's just spoke about. A slow start from Southampton, obviously going to go behind and then potentially could have gone further behind. But a really good reaction and a fantastic free kick from James Ward-Prowse, which we've seen many, many times. Brilliant execution, probably one of his best, because it is actually really close to the box, and he gets it over the wall with such power and pace. And then Brozier again caused Crystal Palace problems all night with that power and that pace, and love seeing him get in those areas between the centre halves and the centre midfield, and running at the back four, and a really, really good finish. And I think, if I remember rightly, Will Smallbone came into the team that night. Nathan Tella came into the team, and Nathan Tella as well put a really good performance in, where he was using his pace on the counter attack. And Southampton just couldn't hold on, really. Maybe needed that third goal to kill Crystal Palace off, but they came into it in the second half more and more, Crystal Palace, and probably deserved the point. And I think it was a fair result in the end, but it was another good performance from Southampton on the road, but a disappointment that they didn't win the game. But the biggest memory is the goal from James Ward-Prowse, because just spectacular, and we almost take it for granted, really, that you expect him every time there's a free kick for him to score. But that comes down to the hard work he puts in and the dedication that he puts in. And it would be lovely to see another free kick from Prowse today.
Yeah, we'd all love that, wouldn't we? Well, I'm going to change the topic slightly now. Paul, Nathan Tella's been doing fantastically well out on loan at Burnley. First of all, how good is that to see? And then also, could you see him working his way back into Ralph's plans when he's back at St Mary's?
Absolutely. I think there are two types of loan deal. There's the one where it's a sort of a start of an exit, a long-term exit. We can't find a buyer quite yet. Let's send him out on loan and then wind his contract down. This isn't one of those cases. I think the manager, quite understandably, is a big fan of Nathan Tella's, and he just needed a bit of game time. He had a frustrating season last year, in and out of the team. He had a long-term groin injury, I think it was. He had COVID as well. So after his breakthrough season, the year before, where I think he'd made his debut in the sort of the strange time after COVID, that was only a couple of minutes, but the season before last, he lit up St Mary's on a number of occasions. We mentioned the way Lianco gets fans grinning. Well, Tella's doing that in a different way. He running at players, taking them on, not showing any real fear. I think it was in his first 7 or 8 appearances, they virtually all came against big clubs, Tottenham, Chelsea a couple of times, Manchester City as well. He wasn't fazed by any of them. Whoever how illustrious the opponent was ahead of him, he was running at them, taking them on and causing them problems. And it was wonderful to see. He's still very, very young. He's helped Burnley to the very top of the championship table, scored 5 or 6 goals himself, and he's got to be learning from Vincent Kompany as well, if nothing else, just about a winning mentality. He's got a manager there who's won the Premier League 4 times. He was Premier League Player of the Season as well a decade or so ago. So, he's going to have another very strong, good voice to be learning from there, and he clearly is enjoying his football again. So that's wonderful to see. There's talk about whether he could come back to Saints in January. You never know. I think the manager hasn't ruled that out. It'll depend on what's going on injury-wise at Saints and how he's getting on at Burnley. But I would have thought he'll see out the season there, help Burnley get back up to the Premier League, and he'll be raring to go for Saints again next season, which would be terrific.
Yeah, terrific indeed. It's great to see Nathan doing so well there. But Dean, let's get back to today's opposition, Crystal Palace. 3 wins for them so far this season, all of which have come at home. So they have been coping okay at Selhurst Park. What have you made of their campaign so far?
Yeah, they've been quietly impressive, Kenzie, and they're more of an attacking threat. They've got some exciting young players, and Patrick Vieira's changing the philosophy and the mould at the football club, where they have more possession of the ball. They're more exciting to watch since a change from Roy Hodgson, which is good to see. And they've had some good results. I think they've drawn with Liverpool. They were 2-0 up away at Man City and unfortunately lost, and then losing last minute to Chelsea. So they've become really competitive against the bigger teams. And then they've beaten the teams that you would probably expect in Aston Villa, Leeds and Wolves this season, where they've picked their victories up. And like I say, they're keeping more clean sheets, conceding less goals and creating more chances. I still think like a few teams in the Premier League, probably 6 or 7 teams in the Premier League. They would like to improve their centre forward, their number 9, that could potentially get them their 15 to 20 goals, and that would really elevate them into an even bigger team. But it's really interesting because people are talking about them in a really positive manner, and they're only 1 point in front of Southampton, which is so interesting. But they're improving, and they are a force at Selhurst Park. There's a strong and almost an intimidating atmosphere at Selhurst Park now, and the crowd create that atmosphere, and it looks like the players enjoy playing there. So this will be a tough challenge today for Southampton, but they're a team that seem to be on the up, but probably like all other teams, they'd like to win more games. I think they've drawn 4 or 5 games this season, which potentially could have been wins, and then they would have been higher up in the league. So quietly impressive, Kenzie, I think they've been.
Fair enough. Well, it may be a tough challenge today, but the fans are certainly confident on our social media channels. They've been getting in touch in their droves. Watching at home, Jacko Hard has said, hello from Finland. Usually good games against Palace, hoping for another one today. Lithernick92 says, if we can take a point from Arsenal, we can get all 3 against Crystal Palace. Also, one from Lynn Dennis says, another win would be excellent. Come on, you Saints. Ryan Ackland, he said, he's feeling confident of a 2-1 Saints win. Vishnal as well has also said a 2-1 Saints victory today with Lianco and Shea to score. Sam Scripter says he's loving seeing Lewis Payne in the squad as well. Patrick has said it's a winning team with goals in it. And a final one from Hannah, who said she loves Palace away. Now, Paul, you've seen Palace play a few times this season so far. What have you made of them, and where do you expect them to be come the end of this season?
Can I just check before that? Were they genuine viewers, or were they also random friends and family members of the crew? Like earlier on.
I'm sure they're verified
very
watchers.
much legit.
Yeah.
Good. Look, I have seen Palace a couple of times. I remember I was at the Leeds game a couple of weeks ago, and I used the phrase Jekyll and Hyde about Lianco earlier, didn't I? I think they're a bit like that as well, because first half against Leeds, they were very ropey. Second half, they came into it, ultimately won the game. And I think in a lot of ways, they're quite similar to Saints, really. I don't think either club is going to be troubling or part of the relegation battle come the end of the season. I don't think either club is going to be battling for 7th or 8th, sadly, either. They're going to be in the middle. They're going to cause big teams problems occasionally and claim some scalps. Dean's mentioned that they were 2-0 up against City, 1-0 up at Anfield, 1-0 up against Chelsea. Ultimately, only picked up the 1 point from those 3 games. But in the past, they've won at the Etihad under Patrick Vieira, and they are going to win some games that you expect, win some games you don't expect. Equally, they're going to lose some games that you expect to see them win. There's an awful lot of talent in there. Good manager, just like Saints have got Ralph as well. The problem with being a mid-table Premier League club is the consistency. It's just impossible to see those teams perform every single minute, week in, week out. There are going to be times that infuriate us all. There are going to be times that amaze us all and delight us all. And, I think that's why a lot of people are looking forward to this game so much, even from as far-flung places as Finland and so on. They know that it's going to be a tasty encounter that you can't predict. There is going to be a lot of quality on the pitch. There's also going to be some spice there. And, I think we could have anything today, but, hopefully a Saints win.
Belvis, you mentioned that there might be some spice. I certainly agree. I'm really looking forward to seeing Lianco taking on Zaha. But this is the part of the show where we really get down to business. We get your thoughts on how you see the match going. So, Dean, we'll come to you first. What's your score prediction and, your early thoughts ahead of kickoff?
Well, I'm like you, Kenzie. I'm looking forward to that duel between Lianco and Zaha. I think that would be really, really interesting and probably could dictate how the game finishes, really. But I think if you look at the last 3 performances and 3 results for Southampton, it's been excellent. And I'd love to see them continue to build off that. And they seem to have a bit of momentum now and a bit more belief and confidence in the players and themselves collectively as a team. So this will be a tough game today. I think it will be a tough game. And I'd love to see Southampton get another clean sheet. I think that could really help the group. But I think that will be tough today. But I think I will go for a 2-1 Southampton win. And I'm going to go for a James Ward-Prowse free kick. I think he's a brilliant leader, but he's probably dropped a little bit below where you'd expect him at the moment, and that's not necessarily his fault. It's been difficult for him because he's not had a consistent partner in the centre of midfield, but I can see him putting in a brilliant performance today and getting a free kick. So a 2-1 Saints win.
Lovely, yeah, we'd love to see a trademark Prowsey goal, wouldn't we, today against
certainly.
Palace. Now, Paul, you're Mr. Optimistic. What are you saying ahead of the match before you undoubtedly go off and watch a rather drab affair at the Vitality?
I read this morning that Saints have actually got 10 Premier League wins at Selhurst Park. I don't think they've got a record like that at any other ground, although 4 of them came when Wimbledon were ground sharing. Kenzie and Steve, you're far too young to know what a Wimbledon is, so Dean can explain that after we're off air. But I think, I said about the unpredictability and so on. Saints have been struggling to score goals. It's been sort of one here and there. Today, the floodgates even are going to open. Shay Adams is going to get a couple. It's going to be a thoroughly entertaining 4-2 victory on the road to see Saints surge up the table.
Honestly, I'm sure I say this every time we have you on the show, Balvers, but you really say it with so much conviction. I truly believe it's going to happen.
It's going to happen.
And let's hope so, because I really like the sound of that. Yep. Well, thank you both ever so much for your company and for your analysis, as always. Balvers will say farewell because you're not joining us for the post-match show. But Dean, we look forward to welcoming you back at the final whistle. Thank you all for your company as well. Thanks for those comments. It's been brilliant reading those out. We know Saints currently on a 3-game unbeaten league run. Can they extend that to 4 today as they take on Crystal Palace? Well, whatever the result, we will be back with you after the game for the final whistle. Make sure you join us then. But in the meantime, have a great day. We'll see you soon.
Bye for now.